Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So this is basically a follow-up to yesterday's video where I talked about how big layoffs at Navigator Games have meant that Avatar Generations is not in a very good spot. 40 or so people were let go from that development team, and then in the comments on that video people were pointing out that, oh, actually, just beginning to come out is Avatar Studios has also laid off a bunch of people as well. And so it took a little bit of time for the details of that to kind of come out, and so that's what we're here to talk about today. So here is one of the posts from someone who was let go by Avatar Studios. So let go without any notice. There's a few kind of questions that they have responded to, just highlighting that, is the movie in trouble? Many productions are in trouble because of strikes and other reasons piling up, and there is no sign at the moment of anything being cancelled. Again, please don't start badgering this person with questions when they probably cannot say anything more than literally kind of what they said there. They're not going to reveal stuff that hasn't been publicly said by Avatar Studios, basically. So the other thing here is, I think at one point they do mention as well, huge crew layoffs. So just to give a sense for the scope here, that this is actually quite a lot of people who have been let go, and it's happened quite suddenly. But it puts it into perspective that, yes, this is specifically news about Avatar Studios, letting people go. But it is happening across kind of the entertainment industry, across the board. And it's related to stuff like the strikes happening and the fact that I think there have been rumors and stuff like that, that animation probably is also going to go on strike as well at some point. It just feels like that is the way things are going. This is becoming a pretty major problem for pretty much every entertainment industry. And this is just the way things are actually going. So I think the takeaway from this probably has to be that it's not that things specifically are going wrong with Avatar and Avatar is being targeted, and because I have covered news about 2 Avatar things having layoffs that this suddenly means Avatar's in trouble. I think it's just more of a sign of the entertainment industry in general. The reality of it is that, look, Avatar Studios still has people working for them. We just don't know what stage of production they're at on that first movie, because it's out in 2 years. October 2025 is when that movie is planned to come out. They have an animation studio that is separate from Avatar Studios working on it, that is Flying Bark Animation. So it highlights that, of course, the Avatar Studios work on that is like a lot of character design stuff, hence why this person here is a character designer or a character layout artist. That's what a lot of the people who work at Avatar Studios are doing. The actual animation that we will see will be done by Flying Bark Animation, of course, based on the designs done by these character designers. But it's just understanding that there is that kind of thing as well, and it's what stage of production are they at here? What does this mean for other Avatar Studios productions and stuff like that? That's where it gets very confusing, and the reality of we just don't know a lot of official information about Avatar Studios full stop comes into play. That, yes, the one thing we kind of do know is that they had a huge, ambitious plan to do multiple movies, multiple shows, spin-off shows, other types of short form kind of content for different age groups and stuff like that. Their plan was massive, and it seems like they had, or still have, the support of Paramount, because it seems like a big thing these days is that these companies really want their big franchise. And Avatar Studios was so exciting because it seems like Paramount finally have acknowledged that Avatar in animation is the pathway to a very strong franchise if they support it well enough. And they obviously have done, but now that financially the industry is going in a certain direction, these things are happening, what does that actually suggest? Again, there's been no official cancellations. At this point, this far into production on that first movie, I don't think there is any way it is getting cancelled. Is the production going to be affected by this? Again, we don't know where in production they're at, but you know, it's not that we're hearing that Flying Bark is laying off people, so we have to assume that they're into animation at this point, and so a lot of the kind of character design work has maybe already been done. But what does that mean? And probably this is maybe where Avatar Studios will probably be more affected, is what does this mean for the other projects, like the second movie, the first series, those type of things. Those are probably where we might see more of the impact here. But this is where we also get into the idea of, we don't know how big Avatar Studios is or was as a company. And when they say huge layoffs have happened here, what numbers are we jumping from? Because with Navigator Games, it seemed like it went from 40 people gone, you're down to maybe a skeleton crew of maybe 10 people working on that game. With Avatar Studios, what are we talking about here? Did they have 200 people working for them and now 50 are gone, but they still have a lot? Or is this like half of the people gone? Or is it smaller than that? Like that's sort of the details where we don't really know. We don't know what they're doing, and so we don't know kind of in a way how much crew they needed or whatever. And you know, some people might be working on this project, some people might be working on the next one, and what's actually kind of happening here. The other thing I think to factor into this is that only 3 weeks ago, there was the kind of relatively big news, because it's one of the first ever Avatar Studios things they properly openly spoke about, Avatar Academy. 3 weeks ago, they're basically being like, sign up to become a trainee at Avatar Studios and work and get mentorship from professionals working in Avatar Studios. And then cut to 3 weeks later, and some of these professionals, many of these professionals, have been let go. So is this still going ahead? I believe the situation here was that they were meant to, it starts in November 2023. Has this been cancelled? Or, you know, is this now basically a replacement thing? And was this always part of the plan? Or is this just kind of unlucky timing where it looks like now they're letting a bunch of full-time people go to bring Avatar Academy trainees in? What's the actual situation here? Like, it's very unclear when it comes to that. But again, I don't think we can immediately assign like, oh, this is looking a little bit sketchy here, when we don't know what the situation is. So as far as we're aware, like there's been no cancellation, no delay to the movie, because this did just happen last week, and we don't know when the next time we're actually going to hear about the movie actually is. Because I think realistically, we're probably waiting until maybe like San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con next year to get panels where, you know, Avatar Studios feel like they have to be there. Otherwise, like, what are we doing? And this is kind of what's, you know, making this kind of very difficult to talk about, is just that we know so little about Avatar Studios that it is hard to know where they were in production, what this actually means overall. Now, if it is just that this probably means that maybe the scope of Avatar Studios is not as big as it once was, I don't necessarily think that is a major problem. Like, obviously, it was really cool when we were hearing about the idea of, like, they have this plan and there's, like, 3 movies, like, 3 shows, and they're going to have this thing where there's basically, like, 4 animation projects coming out every year from Avatar Studios. Sounds fantastic. Like, it's the most amazing dream imaginable. This maybe means that gets cut down to like, okay, we get that first movie, we get whatever the second project is, and it's maybe it gets us back down to maybe these projects are now just going to be done more kind of one by one, maybe 2 in production at the same time, where they're maybe working on movies and a TV show, and they're not trying to go as heavy into the like pipeline of content and just keep putting stuff out, keep announcing projects. And I think a lot of people might actually be relatively okay with that, because the plan, the rumored plan, kind of seemed a little bit crazy when you think about it. That like literally over the space of like, what was it, like 3-4 years, that we would literally have 3 series, 3 movies, and more stuff. Whereas we're used to getting like a series, waiting a bunch of years, a series. Now it's been, you know, a really long time. We're just going to be happy to get that first thing. And I think that's the important thing here, of like, it is better to have any animation project for Avatar than have like none. Just because we've gone down from maybe it being in a situation where there's like 6 in the pipeline to maybe now 2 or 3 in the pipeline. Sure, it's like signs maybe aren't so great, but when we don't know so much of it is based on rumors. Kind of what are we really meant to do with a lot of this information? It's just tricky to talk about, I think, overall. Like, it's obviously not good news to know that, you know, the company, Avatar Studios, has had to let people go for financial reasons or whatever. And this is going to have an effect because, you know, the production was running with this huge amount of people still involved. Now it is still going on without that amount of people involved. And they can make stuff happen, but stuff is going to have to be adjusted here or there. Like, that is the kind of reality of this situation. I will also bring up this, because I've seen people pointing this out, that there are these rumors that are about sort of like Netflix and Avatar Netflix and what's going on there. And the gist of this, of course, is that it basically says Avatar was potentially a cinematic universe Netflix was trying out along with a bunch of other stuff. One Piece came out, was huge, and now they want to go heavy there and are putting less into the other ones now that they have the big One Piece. Now, the reality is that sounds kind of like ominous, but it's worded in such a way where it's like, well, it doesn't directly confirm that like they're so into One Piece that they've given up on Netflix Avatar. It's just they are focusing on the thing that they know is a success. And in my mind, there's no way, surely, like before this thing, season 1 of Netflix Avatar is even launched, surely they're not pulling everything away from that production before we've actually seen it happen. Because what if it comes out and it's just as much of a hit as One Piece? What if it does better than One Piece? There's no way they're that misguided. I think they are going to wait until they see how season 1 does. Now, maybe the high-ups have seen the way it's turning out and can see, yeah, this probably isn't going to do like what we think it's going to do. But still, I think they just have to wait and see the reception, which I think is typically the way they always do things. I completely get the idea that they are amazed with how well One Piece is doing and they're going all in on it. That's perfectly fine. And that's likely affecting other stuff that, Netflix had maybe in earlier production. But this does seem to be a separate thing completely to Avatar Studios, which is under Paramount, which is separate to Netflix having Avatar. That's just because, like, that's kind of in a way kind of licensed out. Avatar Studios seems to be minorly involved with Netflix Avatar in the sense of, like, kind of supplying them, like, certain canonical information about, like, place names that are more kind of, like, new reveals and stuff like that. But otherwise, like, I'm not sure how big of an impact there really is there. Because even if the Netflix Avatar, like, only gets one season and kind of drops off after that, I'm not sure how much that reflects back on Avatar Studios, just because in a way, like, Avatar Studios, when it was announced, was at that point where we knew so little about what was actually going on with the live action, and it sort of spoke to the idea of this was announced separate to that, because they're like, Avatar animation is what we see the future as being, not Avatar in live action. So I think they're separate enough to where, like, they don't really have too much of an impact on each other. But again, Netflix is probably suffering from the same stuff that Paramount is suffering from, and so they have their own layoffs that they have to do. And so maybe there are layoffs happening kind of around the scenes of, the Netflix production and stuff like that. But you would assume if Netflix Avatar does well, it will get the support it needs. And, because that's the whole point, is that having two big live action kind of franchises that are good, One Piece and Avatar, is better than just focusing completely on One Piece. Again, financially, can they even do that? Are they literally in a point where they have to make a decision between Do we support the known success One Piece, or do we, try and split it across two? We just don't know. That's where we don't know about kind of like budget assignment and stuff like that. It's just a very confusing position to be in. But I think my main takeaway here is just that we don't know enough. I don't think this is doom and gloom for Avatar Studios. It's obviously a bad thing that it's happened here. But I don't think this really speaks to the idea that, oh, the movie's in trouble now. Because you ask the question of, like, what have they done the last, like, 2.5 years? Like, there's still been, like, 2.5 years of work done already. And again, I have to assume that, like, a lot of that pre-production work that would be done by character designers on the movie is in place, and that it's in the process of being animated right now, or that's going to start and it will be done over the next 2 years. But even that, it's like we don't know anything about that. So it's more of just a situation of just the general thing with Avatar Studios, is that we know so little about it that it's hard to judge how big of an impact anything really has on it, because we don't really know what it is outside of the broad ambitions of the studio. And it just speaks to that they need to communicate. They need to tell us some stuff and see where this all happens, because people are excited for this first movie. But the fact that it's been so long since we've heard about Avatar Studios and we've not seen anything apart from, like, leaked stuff and that one image that we weren't meant to see, even though it's, like, probably responsible for, like, most of the hype surrounding the movie. That's where this all kind of comes out to. It's just that, again, the entertainment industry is what is sort of struggling at the moment, not Avatar specifically. Avatar is being affected by the overall entertainment industry struggling. That's the reality of this situation. And that's why, like, the takeaway from this really should be, yes, it's not great, but also, we are ultimately right now in a better position than we were many years ago, that we still have an animation on the horizon. Like, it obviously was better before we heard about these things happening, but we still have stuff coming out, and that is better than the last couple of years in between Korra and now. So I'm not going to be doom and gloom about this until we actually get information that kind of, I think, directly shows us this is a true negative impact that this is having on Avatar, in terms of, like, is the movie going to get delayed? I think that would be a disaster. If that movie gets delayed out of October 2025, that's a huge, huge hit, because realistically that's heading into 2026 at that point. And if they don't have a plan for 2024 or 2025 for Avatar to get us to 2026, I do think that is kind of crisis mode. We'll get there. We'll still get there to 2026 and get that first project, but a delay is not what we need at this point. So yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts on this are. It's obviously very difficult to, I think, in a way, almost like form an opinion on what exactly this means, because there's the lack of knowledge about Avatar Studios, but then there's the really heavily talked about in the news right now, just like problems across the board with kind of entertainment mediums, with strikes and all this other stuff happening. It's so difficult to compile it all together to suggest what it really means for Avatar going forward. But let me know what you think. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.